Self-Love is the New Sexy, the podcast devoted to helping you overcome life's most painful and stubborn challenges so you can feel great, have more energy, and live stress-free every day. To reach your full potential, simply work with the powerful spiritual principles that are readily accessible to everyone. It's easier than you think, and on today's show, W. Mark Watts is going to show you how starting with self-love is the key to joyously and harmoniously making that happen.
Hey everybody, it's W. Mark Watts. I want to say hello and welcome and thank you for hanging out with me for another episode of Self-Love is the New Sexy. And today's episode is something near and dear to my heart and kind of a tribute to my very first mentor, Mr. Joe Schroeder. So today's episode, I'm going to kind of keep it brief because it's going to be self-explanatory and I know you all will get it really quickly, but I just want to reiterate this point again. So I've talked about this in a previous episode, but it's been on top of my mind for the past couple of days, which means I probably need to express my my thoughts about it again. And it's simply this, is each day, each one of us should strive to be great, should strive to be our best that we can ever be, the best version of ourselves in that particular day. Now, that should free us also from attempting to reach all of our goals overnight. So there's a reason why it takes time for us to achieve things, to reach certain levels, to feel certain ways, and to develop in ways that we think we may develop. However, it is also possible for us to really be our greatest self every day. And many times, I think we take for granted the fact that we can do that and that whatever that is in that particular day, in that particular moment, is totally acceptable. Oftentimes, we really get caught up and we buy into other people's opinions, attitudes, thoughts about not only themselves, but about us. And we have to reverse that cycle. We have to become more involved in what we think about ourselves, what we're doing about ourselves, how we're managing our day, and thus how we're managing our relationships with everything else in our lives. But I remember very vividly my very first mentor, some maybe 12 years ago, as of the recording of this podcast episode. I was introduced to him by a friend who I worked with at the time, Monty. So thanks a lot, Monty. Big shout out to you because you helped guide me. You probably don't know it, but you really led me into this whole realm of understanding of life and where I am today. But anyway, so he introduced me to Joe Schroeder, and I joined a live, I guess, webcast at that time. And Joe got on live and started talking. And he was immediately very interesting to me because, number one, he was different. His voice was different. The way he talked was different. The way he seemed to just be in love with himself and unapologetic was very interesting to me. I'd never really been told or taught by someone who seemed to feel that way and seemed to be, to really be honest and open about it and really be firm in his beliefs like that. And so it was very interesting. So right away, he piqued my interest. So, which meant I wanted to learn more. I wanted to talk more to him. And so Joe had training classes and he taught many, many things. But one time he started the call with, "Good evening, everybody. This is the great Joe Schroeder." That's right. I said great Joe Schroeder. And then we went on and on and on. And we usually go on for about an hour, hour and a half, and he would just teach principles and talk with us and challenge us. And, it was great times. And then one time he got the question, "Why do you call yourself great?" And that was pretty interesting because you could tell when he was get even more excitable than he normally was, because he was very spirited. Joe is from New Jersey, and just the bravado. And so he said, hey, I'm going to answer that question, and thank you for asking that question, whomever it was. I don't remember who it was at the time, but so he started to answer that question, and I thought his answer to that question was eye-opening for me and actually life-changing. And so here's what he said.
We hope you're enjoying today's show. If so, please take a moment to show your support for the show by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. If you have questions for W. Mark Watts, please feel free to contact him over at wmarkwatts.com, on Instagram at wmarkwatts, or on Facebook at Self-Love is the New Sexy.
So he came back on. He took a brief pause, and he told us, he said, hey, I'm going to take a brief pause and get me something to drink, and I'm going to be right back with you. Because he would do that during calls. He would actually take a break and then come back and complete the call, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, different from anybody else that I had even thought. I didn't even think that was that was normal. Like, why would you do that? It's kind of rude. But anyway, it wasn't a big deal. So he came back and he says, hey, someone asked me why I call myself the great Joe Schroeder. He said, number one, because nobody else is going to do it. And he says, number two, that's how I feel about myself. And number three, that if you don't initiate that energy, that positive motion, if you don't feel so sure, and if you don't express how you feel about yourself, then there's no way that you can ever reach your peak potential. There's no way you can ever be the best that you can be. And so that sunk in. And of course, he recorded these calls, and oftentimes we'd have access to the recordings. But I remember taking notes on that piece, and that stuck with me and still stick with me today, as you can tell. But I thought that was an important, eye-opening turning point for me, because I had never thought that, or I felt that way. And I think many of us do. We feel that way internally or silently. We have that small portion of ourselves that we allow to think that we feel that way about ourselves. But if challenged, sometimes we will retreat back into that small person or that less than person, or, someone who doesn't respond with greatness and with bravado and with passion and with confidence and with love, And so when he did that, when he told us that, I'm like, wow, that's cool. That's really cool that he could feel that way. And so what he ended up doing at the end of the call was he said, hey, I need you all to do me a favor. As a matter of fact, it's his homework assignment. So he said, before our next call, I want you to call yourself the great whomever in your name. Say whatever it is behind it. And not only do you say it silently, but I need you to say it out loud. And I want you to practice it in the mirror. And I want you to look at yourself when you say it in the mirror. But I also want you to say that to somebody else. So if you meet someone, or just even people that just tell them, hey, I'm the great whatever. And now that was a challenge, right? Because that's kind of odd. It's kind of different to just say that, and especially to say that to somebody else. But anyway, I thought about it, and he had challenged me, and I'm one of those people that if you challenge me, I'm going to respond one way or the other, so I took him up on his challenge, and I started practicing it to me. And so I went to work and tried it out on a couple coworkers, and they look at me, and people have always thought I was a little different anyway, so it's kind of cool. But they thought, wow, that was a little weird. Why did you say that? And so I explained to them, hey, I'm working with a mentor, and he challenged me to do it because he wants us all to feel this way. And in order to feel that way, to help yourself feel that way, you have to say it. So in honor of the great Joe Schroeder, and on behalf of the great Mark Watts, I am going to challenge you, the listeners, to call yourself the great and fill in your name. So I invite you to accept that challenge. And here's why. Because it's not about being cocky or arrogant. It's about just really becoming comfortable with your own greatness and valuing yourself, making yourself feel good. Again, it goes back to my principle of setting yourself up for success. So anything that we can do to help set ourselves up for success and even greater success and even more greatness are the things that we have to do on a daily basis. Those have to be our practices. So I challenge you again just to call yourself great. And then on top of that, what I want you to do is I want you to feel that way inside too. So I want you to picture something that makes you feel really good. And so when you say it, when you call yourself the great, I want you to put that mental image of whatever makes you feel good in your mind. So I want you to think about it first. So think about whatever makes you feel good, strong, and powerful, and loving and happy. Think about that and then say the great whatever your name is and practice that. Give it a week. And I hope this resonates with some of you because it was a real life-changing experience for me because it made me look at myself and feel so differently than I had been accustomed to feeling. I'd often felt that way many times when I was competing in sports because you have to build yourself up and get yourself to a peak state so that you can go and perform at your highest level in that day. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to then parlay that into my daily life. I wanted to be in that peak state, feel that great about myself every single day. And so this was a practice that helped me do that. So again, I'm going to end there, but the challenge is set. So if it resonates with you, if it feels funny, if it feels uncomfortable, then that means you need to try it. So try that. Call yourself the great. But first, get that image of something that makes you feel strong, powerful, a really great time in your life. Think about that, get that image going, and then call yourself the great and look at yourself in the mirror. And then once you've established that and you're comfortable there, say it to someone else, a friend, a family member, or a coworker, whomever. Yeah, they might think you're crazy, but so what? It's all about your growth and your greatness and you stepping into your full power and who you are. So there's a challenge, the greatness challenge in honor of my first mentor, the great Joe Schroeder. That's all I have for you folks today. Thanks for hanging out with me. Look forward to speaking with everyone again soon. Bye now.
You've been listening to Self-Love is the New Sexy with W. Mark Watts. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to tell a friend. Also, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you listen to podcasts.